Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be absolutely incredible. In today's video, I'm taking you to the Spring Cup, where a Shadow Palkia is absolutely crushing opponents' hopes and dreams. Now, these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Ashton Ash, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, Ashton Ash is one of the best battlers in the world and is a frequent top competitor in the Pokemon GO Championship Series, so I'm very excited what he can do, because Shadow Palkia in his hands is going to be absolutely deadly. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, unfortunately off to a bit of a tough start, leading Empoleon into Jellicent. This team is pretty soft to Jellicent as a whole, as none of the Pokemon on this team are really comfortable surviving a Shadow Ball. Empoleon's gonna strike first, connecting with the Drill Peck. Jellicent looks to overfarm, tries to CMB tie, but in doing so, that's just gonna give a free Metal Sound to the Empoleon. Shadow Ball lands, that puts Empoleon critically low, but Empoleon will survive to make a Drill Peck. Jellicent can survive the Drill Peck, but now in comes Seaking. Jellicent immediately responds with the Shadow Ball. Seaking's gonna be no shielding. It looks like all shields in this game are going to be saved for the Shadow Palkia. And Shadow Palkia is gonna need it as in comes Shadow Victory Bell. Victory Bell is gonna look to shield up the Icy Wind, fully acid down, and unfortunately, Victory Bell has incredibly fast pacing, which means that Palkia is going to be forced to double shield unless it's able to catch a Leaf Blade. And unfortunately, the switch timer is not up, Palkia unable to catch, and Palkia is going to be forced to put up the shield. Victory Bell immediately undertaps, Palkia going from 2 shields to 0 in a matter of seconds. Shadow Palkia is going to get a full farm down, but not having any shields to work with is very bad. Palkia will still have the ability to catch onto the Empoleon, however. Opponent reveals their final Pokemon is a Shadow Empoleon. Palkia farms up. There's the catch attempt from the opponent, and they do not get it. The game comes down to this. Palkia full setting the Draco Meteor. Do they respect it? They do not. Resisted Draco Meteor, one-hit KO, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a very neutral lead, Empoleon into Klefki. The Astonishes do add up quite a bit on the Empoleon, but Empoleon is able to outpace, and Hydro Cannon will inflict some pretty significant damage onto the Klefki. Oh, that is a very nice play, throwing one Metal Sound, getting the catch onto the Seaking, and sneaking through the free peck as well. Now, unfortunately, the Klefki is so far ahead on energy that Klefki will make another foul play before the Drill Run is available, but Seaking can shield up and look to farm down, but the opponent's not going to let that happen. They're able to save that low HP Klefki, sending in the Jellicent, and unfortunately, I think Seaking is just going to get outpaced here. Seaking's so close to the Drill Run, but with the Shadow Palkia on the team, you really cannot afford to give up the final shield. So now in comes the Shadow Palkia. Shadow Palkia, these Dragon Breaths are adding up quite a bit. Jellicent overfarming, and Palkia is just going to look to secure the knockout with the Aqua Tail. Unfortunately, the Jellicent is not going to surrender this energy without a fight. So they put up the shield, they return fire, they go for the Surf Bait. In the back, they have Credilli. Credilli is very far behind on energy. Palkia farms up a ton, fires off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail gets the shield from the Credilli. Palkia able to outpace. This Aqua Tail will inflict some pretty nice damage onto the Credilli. Aqua Tail lands the switch into Empoleon. Credilli plays to a CMP tie that they do not win. They misremember the energy, and that's going to cost them. Credilli loses an entire charge attack. In comes the Jellicent. Jellicent barely survives the Metal Sounds. They do make the Shadow Ball, but all this is going to do is just give the Shadow Palkia a one-turn head start. In comes Klefki. Klefki trying to farm down, but Shadow Palkia gets there. It's barely hanging on, 1 HP remaining. Aqua Tail takes the knockout, getting a farm down on the Jellicent. Oh my goodness. What a win. We move to game number 3, picking up a bit of an awkward lead, leading Empoleon into Tentacruel. There's a lot of resistant fast food pressure here, but the Drill Pecks will add up over time, and Tentacruel can hit for massive damage with Payback. The good news for Empoleon is that Payback does not one-shot, and that's exactly why Ashton Ash is going to be no shielding. Payback will connect, that does do some pretty significant damage, and now out comes Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is a bit of a problem for this backline. There's not really a dedicated Ferrothorn answer to this team that isn't named Empoleon. Ferrothorn ends up firing off a Power Whip on alignment, and Empoleon is actually forced to put up the shield. Now this is when things get a little bit tricky, because being down a shield to a Ferrothorn and this Drill Peck not threatening a knockout, the Ferrothorn can look to tank 1, shield 1, farm down, and unfortunately, the Power Whip energy is so deadly into the backline, and that's exactly what the opponent goes for. The no shield from Seaking. Seaking just going to take critical damage because it knows Shadow Palkia will need the shield. In comes Empoleon. Empoleon probably going to look to shield the Drill Run and farm down, and unfortunately, I just really don't see a way out in this game. The Empoleon, it's down a shield, but it's up so much energy. Palkia would need an incredible catch, and even then, I don't think that's going to be enough. In comes the Palkia. Shield comes up as Drill Peck is launched by the Empoleon. The switch timer will be up. Will the catch happen? It does happen. Gets the catch. But unfortunately, you kind of have to Dragon Breath farm this into a range where Aqua Tail can knock out. I think Aqua Tail will actually KO. Opponent sends in the Tentacruel, and Tentacruel will immediately be hit with the Aqua Tail. The hope is that Aqua Tail will set up the Dragon Breath farm down here for the Palkia. No! Tentacruel hangs on. That was so close to Palkia 1v3ing, but unfortunately they make the Scald. It's double resisted, but it's a Shadow Palkia. And unfortunately, Shadow Palkia so close to pulling off the 1v3 sweep, but unfortunately, just not enough HP. Good lead in the next match. Empoleon into Gourgeist. Opponent banks some energy, safe switches into Jellicent, and this is where things could get tricky. Not having a dedicated Jellicent counter means that Jellicent is always going to have insane neutral play into this team. Seaking fires off the Drill Run. I think at this point, Ash could probably just let the Seaking go and maybe go for like a massive one-shield farm down with the Shadow Palkia, because Shadow Palkia energy goes very, very far, even when it's resisted. But he's actually going to go a different route. He's just going to fire off the Aqua Tail, just wanting to knock out the Jellicent, and that way Palkia doesn't exit with a bunch of energy, but it's also in a much better spot where it's knocked down a shield. In comes the Gourgeist. There's a nice combo play with the Drill Peck, forcing the shield away. Gourgeist stays on the field to threaten a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, however, will not knock out Empoleon. So Empoleon's going to be no shielding. Gourgeist does get the farm down, and it's all up to Shadow Palkia. Shadow Palkia does double resist Incinerate, but now the Gourgeist can very safely just spam out Seed Bombs. Seed Bomb gets the shield. Shadow Palkia, I think his Dragon Breath is into a range where Aqua Tail will actually pick up the knockout. Palkia's Aqua Tail takes the KO. What do they have in the back? They have Dedenne in the back, but I actually think the Shadow Palkia is going to win this game. I think Palkia can actually make 3 Aqua Tails here, because the Thunder Shocks are not doing a lot of damage, and Dedenne is so slow to get to Parabolic Charge now. Look at that Aqua Tail. Shadow Palkia just on an absolute rampage. It truly does not care about typings. Fairy type into the Water Dragon. Nah, Palkia's just gonna win this. Palkia makes the 3rd Aqua Tail, taking down Dedenne, and that is a good game. A tough lead returns in the next match. Empoleon into Jellicent. This time an adjustment in strategy. The safe switch into the Seaking. Seaking immediately met with the Shadow Ball. Seaking not gonna be shielding, but in doing so loses a lot of its health. Jellicent gonna stay on the field, but if Seaking can set up a big farm down for the Shadow Palkia, we've seen time and time again, Shadow Palkia energy is just simply too good. But no, Jellicent doesn't throw energy. That lets Seaking make the Drill Run. Drill Run lands. That gets the Jellicent very low. Jellicent should be in 1 Dragon Breath range. In comes the Palkia, and they lose all that energy. Nice snipe by the Shadow Palkia. Very good awareness. But unfortunately, an Abomasnow getting brought in is not what Palkia was hoping to see. In comes Empoleon, answered by Klefki, and this game actually does look very winnable. Empoleon's up energy, and this energy is incredibly strong into the back line of the opponent. Once Jellicent has been removed from the field of play, Empoleon is just insanely strong. Hydro Cannon after Hydro Cannon, first one is going to be shielded, second one is going to connect, and I think Ash could consider letting this go and just going for the full farm down. Wow, I stand so corrected. It turns out the Empoleon just survives the Astonish on 1 HP, makes the Hydro Cannon, knocks out the Klefki, and now from here on out, it's going to be the Shadow Palkia show. Once Palkia lands an Aqua Tail, I assume it's just going to be able to fully Dragon Breath down. Yeah, that Aqua Tail just does so much resisted damage. And now the Abomasnow, they're in such a health deficit that I think they're just getting farmed. These Powder Snows are shredding through the Palkia, but I think the damage is already done. The Abomasnow should just be in 1 Dragon Breath range, and they are. They get sniped down, and this team just keeps, against all odds, finding a way to win. Picking up a pretty nice lead in the next match, Empoleon into Victory Bell. Even though Victory Bell can output some devastating damage with Leaf Blade, importantly, they're not able to get the acid down after. So for Empoleon, it's a pretty safe no-shield. However, the Ferrothorn safe switch is going to be a pretty big issue. This team does struggle against Pharaoh. Drill Peck is going to land, there's going to be the safe switch into the Seaking, and Seaking is going to be forced to immediately put up the shield. Power Whip would inflict devastating damage. Seaking, at the very least, will be able to debuff the Ferrothorn with the Icy Wind, but I just don't think the Ferrothorn player ever shields, because they know they can survive it and still make the Power Whip. I don't know if the opponent lagged there, but I think 3 Pecks went through, if I'm not mistaken. Power Whip, even when debuffed, hits so hard, and they get the snipe down with the Victory Bell. That is really not ideal. Back in comes the Empoleon, having the Drill Peck loaded, forcing the shield. Empoleon is so low. Opponent did not want to take the additional Metal Sounds, so instead they're just going to be firing off the Leaf Blade. They do have energy. Can Palkia get the farm down? No, it cannot. The Victory Bell holds on, and that's going to cost Palkia its final shield. Palkia without a shield trying to sweep, end without a catch as well. This is looking to be a very tough game to win. In the back is Shadow Tentacruel. Opponent tries for the catch. They fail the catch. Hold on. Maybe there's a chance. There's so much energy on this Palkia. Palkia going for the Aqua Tail bait. Needs to get the shield. Does not get the shield. And now Palkia is going to have to settle for the triple Aqua Tail. It has to be enough. Tentacruel puts up the shield. Palkia gets to another Aqua Tail. This is going to be close. Will Tentacruel get KO'd here? Aqua Tail lands. No, the Tentacruel survives. What a bait call from the opponent. Had they shielded the first, they would have gotten knocked out by the Draco, but they called the bait, forced the triple Aqua Tail play, and unfortunately that falls just short of winning. We move to the next match, and see a very spicy lead from the opponent, Empoleon into Golduck. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Golduck does learn Cross Chop, which would inflict some pretty sizable damage onto the Empoleon, and even the resistant confusions. Look at that damage right there. They do have Cross Chop, but the Empoleon hangs on, very low HP, refusing to get knocked out, and firing off a Drill Peck to force the final shield. I don't really think anyone on this team besides the Empoleon wants to take the confusion damage. In comes the Sea King, but Sea King's getting melted as well. I have no concept of what Golduck runs as a secondary move, and it turns out I'm never going to find out, because they just fire off the Cross Chop, throw the confusion, and they're just going to get knocked out by the Drill Run. So that's going to be the end of the Shadow Golduck. There's still a 2-0 Shield Palkia, and that is going to be absolutely devastating for the opponent. Jellicent, probably a pretty safe surf bait here, but no, they actually full set the Shadow Ball. Palkia farms up a ton of energy. It's Weezing in the back. Does Weezing get two-shot by Aqua Tail? I really hope the answer is yes. Oh my goodness, it does. Shadow Palkia, you monster. This damage output is just absurd. Back-to-back Aqua Tails, down goes Weezing. In comes the Jellicent. Palkia trying to reach for the Draco Meteor, and I think it's going to get there. Is there anything scarier in this format than a 2-0 Shield Shadow Palkia? If there is, I haven't met it. Shadow Palkia takes down Jellicent with the Draco Meteor. And oh my goodness, these battles are incredible. Very tough lead in the next match, Empoleon into Ferrothorn. I assume in this meta, the Ferrothorn should be on Flash Cannon, so that way they at least have some kind of way of damaging Shadow Victory Bell. And if it's on Flash Cannon, then Empoleon will at the very least be able to soft lose this. Whereas if it's Thunder, this Empoleon's in a lot of trouble. Empoleon no shields. It is the Power Whip, so it appears they are on Flash Cannon as their secondary move. And that can potentially set up the backline quite nicely, because Empoleon does get good damage onto the Pharaoh. Pharaoh does a nice job over farming. This could potentially even set up a resistant Dragon Breath farm down for the Shadow Palkia. No, it's actually going to be the Sea King. Sea King trying for a peck down. Actually, I don't think the Dragon Breath down would have worked either, because the shield would have had to be used either way. There's the pivot from the opponent, sending in the Jellicent. A Jellicent up a shield, always such a problem. Sea King fires off the Drill Run. No shield comes out from the Jellicent. I believe the Sea King is healthy enough that it should survive a Shadow Ball, but if it does, it's not going to be by much. Shadow Ball lands, Sea King hangs on, still making sure to throw in good charge stack timing, one peck, and the Drill Run. Drill Run gets shielded, in comes the Shadow Palkia. Shadow Palkia needs one of its signature one shield farm downs. The Jellicent, I believe they should have their switch timer now, so they can pivot out, and they do, and it's Tentacruel in the back. Man, being down a shield and unfortunately having no ability to catch is going to be the game loss here for the Shadow Palkia. It's going to fire off the back-to-back Aqua Tails, but while it does a lot of damage, it does not do enough. Switch timer not up. Tentacruel is going to make it to the payback. Payback, massive overkill. Even a Scald probably would have knocked out there, but unfortunately that game will end in defeat. We move to the next game. Empoleon going to be leading into Togekiss. Now this is a pretty nice lead. The Metal Sounds do quite a lot of damage. Togekiss can threaten Aura Sphere. This is a pretty IV-dependent charge stack priority tie, but Empoleon does not get knocked out by the Aura Sphere. And Ashton Ash knows it. Look at the knowledge there. Oh my goodness. I feel like most players definitely would have shielded, but Ashton Ash knows that does not KO. The safe switch into the Sea King answered with a Shadow Torterra, and Torterra is getting melted by these specs. The Mud Slaps are adding up quite a bit as well, though. Icy Wind is going to be shielded. That's a charge attack priority tie. Sea King gonna be no shielding as the opponent secures the KO with Frenzy Plant. In comes Shadow Palkia looking for the farm down of Torterra. These debuffed Mud Slaps do quite a lot of damage. Unfortunately, Palkia can't quite get the farm down before the Frenzy Plant is available, but Palkia already had a shield advantage, so trading that shield for a ton of energy is a very good trade for the Shadow Palkia. Opponent sends back in the Togekiss. Oh, the snipe down with the Empoleon. In the back, they have Mantine. Mantine gets the farm down. Now it's another one of these 50-50 calls. Ashton Ash going for broke. Full set of the Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor one-shots the Mantine. What a call. And that's going to be a win. Hopping into the final match, leading Empoleon into Shadow Alolan Ninetales, the Dream lead. Opponent safe switches into a Poliwrath. This is a counter Poliwrath at that. Man, when I saw Poliwrath, I was expecting Mudshot, but counter is a little bit crazy. Now in comes Seaking. Seaking, if they're running Dynamic Punch, will take quite a lot of damage, so Seaking is going to be putting up the shield, but this is actually a Scald Poliwrath. Scald, thankfully, does not get the debuff, and these Pecks are shredding through the opponent's health bar. Troll Run, I don't think will knock out the Poliwrath, but it will set up a very nice Peck farm down. This way, Seaking exits with quite a lot of energy. This energy doesn't go very far into the Alolan Ninetales, but it's not like the Ninetales can ever really damage the Empoleon, so Ash is still very far ahead of this game, and the opponent miscounts. Seaking had so much residual energy, making it to another Drill Run and forcing the shield. The Ninetales can't farm down here either. Oh, they actually can! 1 HP remaining. In the back, they have Galarian Weezing, and they were just ABA weak to Empoleon. And Ash knows, unfortunately for this final game, the winning play is to fully sacrifice the Palkia. Palkia just gets one shot by Sludge, but now Empoleon will take the knockout with the Hydro Cannon, and there's only 1 HP remaining on the Alolan Ninetales. In comes the Ninetales, Metal Sound takes the knockout, and that's a good game. Man, Shadow Palkia in the right hands looks to be an absolute terror. Now, it goes without saying, Shadow Palkia is definitely more of a Pokemon for fun than for climbing, but if you're able to utilize it well and try and get it in a position where it's up energy or up shields, it can be an absolute nightmare. Those Draco Meteors are devastating. I was fully unprepared for that Draco Meteor to just one-shot Empoleon. I know Empoleon doesn't have the greatest stats ever, but it still has a resistance, and Shadow Palkia just simply did not care. Massive thanks to Ashton Ash. These battles were extremely fun. I really enjoy seeing a lot of the Shadow versions of legendary Pokemon get used in the Great League, because a lot of the time in the Master League, when they're all maxed out to level 51 with Best Buddy Boost equipped, they're just so bulky, and they're kind of more so used as tanks. Whereas the Shadow versions in the Great League end up being glass cannons, like the Shadow Kyogres, the Shadow Groudons of the world, in this case, the Shadow Palkia. So, I really like seeing Pokemon like this do well, and Ashton Ash absolutely piloted Shadow Palkia to perfection. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on it, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provided to the channel is so sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.